Welcome to the Atomic Wizards podcast. It's time for our Now Playing series, where we look at the newest movies currently playing in theaters. In today's episode, we'll be covering Barbie, so spoilers ahead, so watch the movie before listening. I am your host, Barbie, and today I'm joined with Ken and Ken. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm Miranda, and I'm joined with Dan and Udi. And a quick little about the Barbie movie. The synopsis is that Barbie suffers a crisis that leads her to question her world and her existence. This film is directed by Greta Gerwig and stars Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling and many, many other talented people. So let's get into our early impressions. Dan, what did you think of this movie?
All right, I don't mind starting us off. It was interesting because I did not think that I was going to like the Barbie movie because like I remember like seeing a clip for I think it was in one of the trailers when it was first coming out and it was the beach off scene like, "Oh, I'm going to beach everybody off." Like, yeah, that is kind of funny, but I was looking at that and I was like, "Oh, I think that's dumb. I think this is going to be a dumb movie." Like I wasn't really vibing with any of the jokes in the trailers, and then like I I knew they were gonna do the whole, oh, okay, so Barbie and Ken are gonna come from Barbie world, and they're gonna enter into the real world and probably get into all sorts of fish out of water shenanigans. And it was like, ugh, great, another movie based off of a licensed IP that's going to do the whole fish out of water story because like the characters are going to come from their world into the real world. We've seen this a million times. Great. This movie is probably going to suck, but I was wrong. I was very pleasantly surprised with Barbie. It ended up being a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The jokes ended up landing much better than what I saw in the trailers. Granted, I only saw like one trailer, really. So maybe the jokes in like the other trailers that came out were better, but yeah, no, the jokes landed much better for me. It got a lot of laughs out of me. The acting was great. Freaking Ryan Gosling as Ken totally steals the show. There's talk going around that like he might get an Oscar for best supporting actor as Ken, and I gotta say that if Ryan Gosling gets an Oscar for his role as Ken in the Barbie movie, that's hilarious. I hope that happens because yeah, that would be great. Um, the story was pretty good. The writing wasn't bad. There was actually quite a few like very sincere, touching moments that I was not expecting from the Barbie movie. Very wholesome. So a few very wholesome moments, which were great. And yeah, it just ended up being a much better movie than I thought it was going to be. Um, it's really funny, like I said, clever writing, good characters, like the jokes do land, and yeah, I'd highly recommend it. I think you should go see it. I mean, granted, it is, don't be dissuaded because it's a movie about Barbie, which is a toy that was made for little girls. Don't let that sway your decision. Go see it anyway because it's more than what you think.
It definitely is more than what you think. There's some twists and turns and things I was not expecting throughout it, so quite a entertaining movie. But let's move to Udi. What were your initial thoughts?
Would you say that there's more than meets the eye to Barbie?
What
Like
is
like
this the Barbie
Transformers?
is this the
That
Barbie
was a
Transformers crossover
Yes.
that we've always wanted?
At the
What do you
end, don't you remember the end credit scene where GI Joe goes to
Oh yeah.
recruit Ken?
Yeah, where GI Joe goes and recruits Ken. Yeah, I remember that. Sure.
yeah, that's the crossover we need.
I mean, if Barbie was a transformer, she would definitely transform into that pink car that she drives around.
That is true. It's a pretty cool Corvette. It's electric.
She kind of transforms in the
In a
Yeah,
movie.
way.
in a way, yeah.
Anyway, not into a car, but
That would be pretty rad though.
That'd be
that'll be a
pretty
plot
badass
twist.
actually.
But anyway, I really like this movie. I was really looking forward to it. If anything, I was just worried because early on, there had been reports that the movie was very not necessarily adult, but just dealt with like a lot of adult themes and was very like mature. Not again, not in like a graphic way, but just like thematically, it was mature and dealt a lot with like womanhood and a lot of the things that the movie did end up dealing with. But it was like reported that the studio wasn't sure if that was the direction they wanted to go in, and blah blah blah. So I was like, I really, really hope that the studio doesn't interfere and end up ruining what it sounds like it's going to be. Because at first, when Barbie got announced, I wasn't sure how to feel about it. I liked Greta Gerwig, I liked the cast, and so I was excited to see what could potentially come of this, especially because it's definitely Greta Gerwig's biggest film to date. So I was happily surprised when went to go see it, and it ended up being really, really great. I would definitely say, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say because I didn't really watch any trailers or really pay attention to any of the marketing for it because I want to go in as blind as possible. But I would say that if you haven't paid too much attention to it or anything, that it could probably be a very nice surprise. It's very entertaining. It's very funny. It's silly. It's meta, but not in like an annoying way where I feel like a lot of things have been like quote unquote meta, but it's just pointing out like very basic, plain Jane, like, okay, haha, not in a very like interesting way. This is like actually very like interestingly meta, or at least like makes it fun in a way that makes it not feel boring. And like I said, the cast is great. I liked every single person that was in the movie. They think they all did a fantastic job. Definitely shout out to Ryan Gosling for really committing as Ken and really giving it his all, even though it's like a really silly character. But of course, like shout out to Margot, Emma Mackey, and all the other Barbies because I think even though some of them didn't get like a ton of screen time, I think they all did a really, really good job. And then I'll just leave it at that, I guess. That way we can go more in depth later. But yeah, so I really liked it. Would recommend. And if you haven't gone to go see it, definitely go do so. Would definitely recommend also doing the Barbenheimer double feature, but we'll get there, I'm sure.
I'm in the same like mindset as both of you guys. So I'm just gonna run through some of my bullet point list here of many notes. um, well, one I want to say that I saw it in the outdoor for the first time. Like that's how I saw my first viewing, and it rained, so it's a little difficult to watch it through raindrops, but it's still a fun experience. I went with a group of friends, and we all dressed up in pink pajamas and like had the whole like girls' day Barbie like fun experience. So that was really fun to do and go to the movies and just like make it a spectacle. And that's one thing I like about this movie and how people are reacting to Barbie and to Oppenheimer is that instead of a versus, we created an and it became a meme and it was organic and it wasn't like manufactured by the production companies or marketing teams. It just kind of happened. And so you get to like dress up and have fun and just, experience cinema. And it was a really cool experience. Minus the rain, at least. But that being said, I did watch it a second time in the theaters, and it was very good that time too. So for my bullet point list, I thought the movie was very stylish. I loved the practical sets and the painting on the sets, especially when she travels from Barbie Land to the real world. Those are all practical. Um, the ending kind of reminds me of The Good Place and the story that Michael has throughout that show. I really enjoyed Michael Cera as Alan. His little fight scene was fantastic. And the inclusion of like canceled and discontinued Barbies was also really cool, bringing a little of that history into the movie from the real world. I really liked Gloria's speech about what it's like to be a woman and the world and the contradictions and the weird standards that society has made. Um, I think she did a very good job doing that little monologue, and it is kind of a key thing in the film, which I'm sure we'll get into later. I liked how by the end it was neither men ruling or women ruling. It was both, and that um, that's like all people should work together to create a society for people to live in instead of one or the other. And then I liked the different nods to other films. So we had 2001: Space Odyssey. Um, I think the horses and them pretending to ride horses comes from Mighty Python and the Holy Grail. We had the classic Matrix, you have two choices, pick one thing. I think some of the dance sequences may have been a reference to Marilyn Monroe and like girl diamonds are a girl's best friend. She does she gets held up and then does a little kick, so I'm not sure if that's a reference, but it might be. Um, The Shining is mentioned, and then Wizard of Oz also. When she drives past the movie theater, those are the posters, and then her dress. I also want to mention that I watched a video by a YouTuber called Modern Girls, and they do a lot of fashion stuff. And I guess for this movie, they used some archival Chanel pieces throughout the film for Barbie's clothes. So that was really nice inclusion because Barbie started as a fashion doll for young girls who looked more adult like. So not the first fashion doll on the line, but the first more like modern adult, older type doll. Um, and fashion dolls are just dolls that like have a bunch of clothes and stuff, I believe. But it's nice to include a bit of that like real fashion history into this movie as well. So those are my general thoughts. Um, I do have a few questions for you guys. Um, you both have sisters. So I was just wondering, like, growing up, did you play with Barbies? Were they in your house? Because, like, at my house, I have a sister and cousins and stuff, so we used to play with Barbies and mostly Brat dolls more than Barbies, I feel like, if I'm remembering correctly. But we had like a donut playset, and my cousin had the dream house and like Barbie computer, like laptop toys. So I was just curious about your guys' experience with Barbie.
So, I can confirm that I did grow up playing Barbie with my sister. I played mainly with my sister Deanna because I grew up with three sisters. I didn't grow up with any brothers, so all I had was three girls to hang out with. And yeah, if you're growing up in a house full of girls, eventually you're probably gonna play with their toys sooner or later. And yeah, me and my sister Deanna did play Barbie at one point, but it was when I was like way younger, and it was only a couple times. But yeah,
My sister, I believe, was more of like a either like a stuffed animal, like slash stuffed doll, sort of that sort of toy, and or Polly Pocket sort of girl. Not as much Barbie. She did have a few Barbies though, um, but uh, I think maybe she wanted me to. Actually, no, I don't know if she ever really wanted me to play Barbies with her. She would just ask to borrow some of my toys sometimes so she could play. She could use my toys to play with her Barbie. So, like for example, I had this big 2005-ish Corvette that her Barbies fit in. I'm pretty sure, and she would use that for playing with her Barbies. And so I thought it looked cool, and so sometimes I would ask her if I could play with her and her Barbies, and she'd be like, "No," and I'd be like, "But why? It looks so fun." So it was me asking her if I could play with her and her Barbies. My sister had like a big dream house, and so that was another. I was like, "Oh, that's so cool."
They did a very good job in the movie replicating the toy look, and that's like another reason I wanted to ask you guys if you ever played with Barbies because like looking at it, it looks exactly like a Barbie playset. Like the detail and dedication to the design is like amazing.
Oh yeah. I especially liked the faraway shots whenever they were driving, like in the pink Corvette, because it just looked like a Barbie playset with like a remote control Barbie car and like everything like that. I don't know if that was actually I don't know how they made those shots, but they looked convincingly like a toy commercial or like something like that. Like it looked really good. Plus, of course, like up close, all the dream house close-ups and the close-ups of the props and like the fridge and everything looked really, really good and really authentic.
Oh yeah, I agree. They did an amazing job on the sets for this movie.
Yeah. I like the fact that the milk says cow milk because obviously it says cow milk. Because, like, otherwise, because you have almond milk, oat milk, etc., etc. So the fact that they, like, indicate it's cow milk, I found very funny.
Yeah. I also liked how in the opening, they really go in depth with like this is somebody just playing with the Barbie because like when she's taking a shower, there's like no water coming out. She's pretending to take a shower. She's pretending to like drink, to eat and whatnot. Like I thought that was funny. And then like they even explain in the movie, uh, when you want a Barbie to go somewhere and you're playing with a Barbie, you just grab them and like float them down to where they need to go. So they even like bring that up, and I thought that was pretty funny.
One detail about the milk that I didn't notice until my second viewing of Barbie was, you know how like they do the gag the second time around where it's like, oh, she's drinking expired milk. If you actually look at the carton before she checks it out herself, it says expired on it. So if you know to
Oh,
check for that, you can see it before she sees it, but which I thought was funny because the first day it doesn't say it, so it literally just expired that day.
good attention to detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the Barbies in the background, since the dream house doesn't have walls or anything, you can see the other Barbies do the exact same routine and stand at the toaster and wait for their waffle, and you can see the waffle pop out and they continue on their day.
Oh wow, I didn't notice that.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't
That's
notice that
cool.
either.
That's
That's
actually really
wild.
cool. Yeah, that's wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's very it's, like, very detailed, and I would love to get my hands on a, like, copy of it, a physical copy, so I could sit down and, like, pause it every single frame.
I look forward to your frame by frame analysis of the Barbie movie, Miranda.
Be like, "This frame means this, and this frame means that."
Exactly.
And then I wanted to ask, did you guys have a favorite Ken or Barbie?
That's a good question. Let me think on that.
I know there's a lot to choose from.
As far as favorite Kens go, I mean, I would say probably just like the main two. I really love Ryan Gosling. He's probably the best in my opinion. Then also Simu Liu. I really liked him as well. I think he does a good job with the dance choreography, and I feel like he just plays up like the sort of dude bro antagonist role well. Like I feel like he was a good like antagonist to Ryan Gosling, who was like super jealous the whole time. And then as far as Barbies go, I mean, again, like it's kind of a similar thing where it seems a little unfair because they're both so like both Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie are so prominent throughout the film. So I would say Margot Robbie, and then I would give a special shout out to Alexandra Shipp. She played like writer Barbie. She was the one who like earned the Nobel Prize for her book, but then she didn't remember what she wrote about, and then once the programming got wiped out, then she remembered. But I liked her as well. Also, her bit about like the Adobe Photoshop thing, I thought that was pretty funny.
She was also the one where when she came out of her trance, she was like, I felt like I was in a dream where I was heavily invested in the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League.
Yeah, yeah, that
that,
part
that was such a good joke. Oh my.
I laughed so hard.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought those were good. Um, as a graphic designer who used Photoshop like almost every day, I'm like, okay, Photoshop is not intuitive, but
It is
it's pretty
not.
easy to figure out because if you don't have the layer selected, a pop-up says, "Hey, your layer is not selected." But I know they were like using it to scheme the Kens so they could not kidnap the Barbies, but collect the Barbies and unbrainwash them. But I found that part funny, but and then the Zack Snyder thing was funny, and then I liked how they talked about The Godfather. It's like, watch a movie, say you've never watched The Godfather, so they can explain it to you, and it'd be like, "Yeah, I feel like there's definitely certain type of people who are like, 'You've never seen The Godfather? You've never seen Fight Club? You've never seen Pulp Fiction? Let me explain the whole thing to you.'" and it's like, okay, I get that they're like seen as like good movies. The Godfather is okay. If you want a mobster movie, I suggest The Goodfellas. Although
Oh
if you
yeah,
haven't seen
Goodfellas is great.
either, watch Godfather first, then Goodfellas.
I agree.
But
I
I
I don't
thought
want
that
to
part was funny too.
I don't want to get too off topic, but like you mentioned, like the conversation around The Godfather. I mean, most people have probably already seen it, but one of the few really good jokes that Family Guy has is the scene where they're all about to like drown, and then before they drown, like Peter just goes, I did not care for The Godfather. And like it starts up this like whole big argument between the family about like it's really funny. Just look it up if you haven't seen it. But
I know
anyway,
you've shown me that.
yeah, I showed
It's
it
really
too.
funny.
Yeah. So but anyway, back to Barbie. So to go back to your original question, Miranda, for my favorite Barbie and my favorite Ken, I mean, like Udi was saying, there's just no beating Ryan Gosling as Ken. Like his performance is hysterical. I love Ryan Gosling's Ken. It's great. But if I were, to choose somebody other than, oh, does Alan count as a Ken? Because I really like
I
Michael
mean,
Cera.
He's
Alan counts
Alan.
as Alan.
He's Alan. All right.
He's one
Well,
of a kind.
Michael Cera was great. I loved Michael Cera.
Maybe I should have rephrased the question to see what your favorite character was. Because there are
Okay.
other people other than Barbie
Oh well,
and Ken
geez. If
Yeah.
we're
throughout
if
the
we're gonna go
movie.
with favorite character, this is kind of skipping ahead, but I loved Will Ferrell as the CEO of Mattel. like, like he was pretty great. But I really loved Alan. Of course, Margot Robbie did great as Barbie, but I also really loved Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. Like that,
Yes.
that was really good. How her legs would just split and the way she would like move around. Like, yeah, she was great.
Yeah,
But
speaking of the movement, they did a very good job at like moving as if they were Barbie. Like when Margot Robbie is having her crisis and she like falls to the ground, and then all of Weird Barbie's movements, very Barbie-ish.
yeah,
I think two of my favorite Kate McKinnon weird Barbie moments were when Alan and the humans were coming up to the weird house after they were trying to help Margot Barbie, and then she goes humans, and that's it. Like it's just such a weird like one shot, and like delivery that I appreciated. And then the other one was when when Margot Barbie falls asleep, and then she has like that one dream about like the super depressed Barbie, and then she wakes up, and then she gets like the jump scare of weird Barbie like really close up, like a horror movie. I thought that was really funny.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember if it was that scene or another scene, but like yeah, like Kate McKinnon's like face just jump scares Margot and she like screams or whatever, and then and then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did it," and then Kate McKinnon's just like, "Oh, okay." Like
I really set myself up for that one.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of, I guess because we went more like Barbie Ken, Alan definitely is a highlight. Michael Cera,
Oh yeah.
despite not having like a ton of screen time in the whole movie, really stole the show. Like he did such a good job. I think my favorite, aside from like his one scene where he's trying to escape and then he like fights all those dudes off and then they like turn back and it's like, I'll never leave this. I'll never get out of here. I like the part where it's at the end and then Ken goes and runs off crying and like into the dream house, and then you just get the shot, like the reverse shot of Alan just standing there crying or with like tears in his eyes. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I mean, Alan is Ken's buddy.
He
Ken's
is.
best friend.
Yeah.
Speaking of Alan, though, I don't know why, but one joke that just really gets me is it's the scene where right before Alan goes to fight everyone, and he's like, as soon as they figure out how to build that wall sideways and not completely up, we're screwed or whatever. Like, I don't know why, but that joke just really gets me.
That was a very good, like, joke.
Yeah,
It's very funny. This movie was
exactly.
surprisingly funny. And
And
like,
it's I don't want to interrupt, but I'm just gonna say really quick. It's also Michael Cera's like delivery that helps with that joke as well.
yeah. I've like Scott Pilgrim's like one of my favorite movies, so I've watched that movie a lot. So like his just like kind of flat delivery can make like simple things like hilarious.
Exactly.
Um Yeah, but that part was hilarious. This movie is surprisingly funny, a lot more than I thought it was going to be, and it's also very, um, like, heartwarming and thoughtful, and, like, there's some moments where you just sit there and you're just feeling all the emotions, and, like, I cried a bit, and, um, like, it's a good movie to see, and I'm glad that it got made, and they were able to do I'm guessing as I'm guessing that they got to do as much as they wanted to, and I didn't feel like the production or the executives running the movie had their hands on it too much. It doesn't feel like it was run by committee or anything. So,
Unlike the theatrical cut of Justice League, but that's a topic for another time.
yeah.
All right, Snyder, cultist. I'm just kidding. I know you're not.
Oh God. Oh God.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I swear you're not. You're not. You're not.
But what was I gonna say? Okay, so you mentioned because you were just talking about like super heartwarming moments. I just think back to that one scene where Barbie and Ken first come to the real world, and like Barbie's sitting on that bench with that old lady, and she just looks at her and goes, "You're so beautiful." You know that? It's like, oh, my heart.
Yeah, that part was really sweet.
Yeah, that's one of the scenes that I had in mind. The lady who's sitting on the bench, I believe let me double check her name. Okay, her name is Anne Roth, and she's the costume designer for the Barbie movie. So I thought
Whoa,
it was
neat.
nice to like include her in on this. I didn't know that at the time. This is a fact that I learned afterwards. But I think that scene is really important to Barbie's journey. It's like where she first gets to sit down and sees like the ups and downs of human existence because she sees some people laughing, she sees some people arguing, someone's having like a bad day, their head's down and they're covering their face with their hand. I think in that scene she's also seeing like kids play around in the park, and people just kind of get to exist in that scene, and um she decides to tell the lady on the bench that she's beautiful, and she responds with "I know," and I find something very heartwarming and confident in that scene. Like just just to say that to someone that you don't even know is pretty like confident, and like shows that there is kindness. Especially for someone who has no idea what's going on in society, who comes from a makeup made up land and doesn't even know how Earth or our society functions. It's just, I don't know, something nice about it.
Yeah, it's a really nice scene.
Yeah, it definitely is like a scene that even from the first time I watched the movie, like stood out. I'm like, I really like this scene.
Yeah, like I said, my heart melted when I saw that for the first time.
And I also just love her response to like without like a lick of doubt, she's like, "I know it," and then they just like smile at each other. It's just really
The
nice.
the epitome of confidence right there.
Yeah. Um, I'm trying to think of other words to describe it, but it's kind of hard. But
Yeah,
that's also when Barbie like cries for the first time because she's feeling all of these new sudden emotions. And
Um yeah, you mentioned that scene where she cries for the first. What was the name of the daughter again? Was it Sasha
I think
or
so.
I do like how that scene was set up because you got that one kid that was like, "Whoa, nobody talks to Sasha. She will destroy you." And then obviously, Barbie goes in anyway, gets proceeds to get destroyed by Sasha, runs off crying, and the kid's like, "I warned her." Like I did like how
no one
how they
ever
set that up.
listens.
Yeah, no one ever listens. Although that school needs better security because you got two
Definitely.
like unknown adults just waltzing into a school like made
Dressed
like
as
I
cowboys and
yeah, like
cowgirls.
like I can understand. I can understand with Barbie maybe letting her go because there's a bit of a double standard there, but I don't see how they let Ken in. Like, what the fuck?
I don't think anyone knew they were there. I think they just walked in.
Yeah.
Hey,
Like,
but still, like if you see Ken in the library, aren't you gonna be like, who is that? Why is
Yeah,
there a
you got
grown man,
a grown man in a cowboy
grown
costume.
cowboy
Yeah. In
yeah,
a place full of children.
he's a
grabbing
little
two books
weird.
about patriarchy, or
And
like a book about
horses.
patriarchy, wars, and horses?
Exactly. I also like when like Ken comes back to the school and he encounters because he like encounters when they first get to the school they encounter this like lady who's like, yeah, I know that, because like Barbie's like, I have this like weird feeling of like being afraid but being completely aware or something along those lines, and that lady
Yeah.
comes in, she's like, that's anxiety, I suffer from it too. Like Ken later comes back to that same lady and I just love her reaction because she's just like, oh no, not this guy again. Like
Yeah. I would be like, you guys are strange. I'm going to walk this different direction. But
yeah.
oh, speaking of the scene about the anxiety, I liked how earlier when they're roller skating, um, that um I think Barbie says like, I'm feeling, why is everyone looking at me? And Ken says, "Oh, like he says he feel everyone's looking at him too." And then she says everyone's looking at her with a sense of like she feels fear, and he doesn't. He feels like confident. And I was like, yeah, no, that that's that's like a feeling that comes up sometimes when you're like walking or you have like a strange outfit on or something. It's like just a general, like, not necessarily fair, but a bit of uneasiness. Like you always have to observe things and watch, and like for safety, whether you're a guy or a girl or a non-binary or etc. person, like that's just something you have to do because like it's good to be safe. But I thought like that they included the scene.
Oh yeah, for sure. You made some good points there. I guess to kind of shift topics a little bit. So earlier, when Udi was giving his first impressions, he was talking about how there was like meta humor and like the way it was done. Now, I am one of those people that I am starting to get a little bit sick of meta humor because like
Yeah, could you explain meta humor?
yeah, well, meta humor is it's breaking the fourth wall. It's acknowledging that you're in a show, or like an example like Deadpool is nothing but meta humor, like making references to the real world. Like there's a scene in there where in the Barbie movie where it's like, well, here's a Barbie that was they were discontinued by Mattel or whatever. Like the narrator will go in and like reference like the real world. That's what meta humor is, just making references to the real world and breaking the fourth wall, acknowledging the audience and whatnot. I'm somebody who I'm starting to get a little sick of it because yeah, ever since Deadpool came out in 2016, like everybody's just trying to do meta humor, and like I think meta humor, when done in a clever way, is funny. Like I do enjoy it when it's done cleverly and like when it's not done 80% of the time, which I know everybody loves Deadpool and I like Deadpool too, but I do get
I
kind of sick
don't.
of I do get kind of sick of all of his meta humor. Like cuz that's pretty much just like that's like the point, that's like the character really at this point where it's like, oh, well, he's just meta humor and that's why people like him, which all right, that's fine, whatever floats your boat. And like I don't want to go too off topic, but like She-Hulk was another the She-Hulk show, full of
Mhm.
meta humor, and like the very last episode is just nothing but meta humor, and that kind of bothered me because it was like, oh, okay. Like I just feel like meta humor, and this is just my opinion, I feel like meta humor can be kind of lazy. It's just a lazy way to get cheap laughs out of your audience because it's because the audience is like, "Oh, they're referencing us," or "Oh, hey, I know that thing. That's funny because they're making fun of it." Like I just feel like it's a cheap way to get humor, but when it's done right, it is really funny, and I do like the way that the Barbie movie handles meta humor because they take a real world company, that company being Mattel, and they kind of make a joke out of it, and I really like it because it's funny, because you never see, you don't see companies make fun of themselves too often. So it always is nice when a company can come out and be like, "All right, I can make fun of myself, or we can make fun of us." And so, Will Ferrell being like the CEO of Mattel also really helped because I love Will Ferrell, and yeah, it was I did like how they handled meta humor here because I liked the whole thing with Mattel. I did like some of the jokes that the narrator made and whatnot. So I thought it was fine. How did you guys feel about it?
Well, like I said before, I feel like because I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Dan, where I don't like inherently hate meta humor, but I've definitely been kind of more tired of it lately. Especially like, in my opinion, lazy meta humor is when it's just kind of pointing out obvious things, but not in like in like a fun or intelligent or funny way. Just like, for example, Fast Nine, where Roman Pierce admits it, like they're all immortal basically, and nothing can hurt them. It's like that's not funny because you're just pointing out something stupid of the franchise and or of the movie that you're watching, and it just makes it more infuriating that they are invincible and nothing happens to them like that. That's just annoying and grating more than like enjoyable. But like in this, it's like done well in or at least like in a fun enough way where it's like, oh, okay, ha ha ha, like it's funny, like all these references to like all the Mattel and like Barbie products and things like that, like it's funny, it's done well and done in like an intelligent way where it doesn't feel like only like, obviously it's product placement, but like it doesn't only just feel like placement. It feels fun and it gets like a laugh out of you and whatnot.
I think it's very well crafted. Obviously, like most of it takes place in Barbie land, most of the movie. And so they have to have those references. They have to have the limited edition discontinued clothes items, and since like Gloria is playing with Barbie, the other movie references make sense because like when you're playing with Barbie, you just play however you want. If you want to make a Matrix reference, you do it. So none of that stuff seemed like out of place. And it also seemed very fitting, especially the 2001 Space Odyssey opening. I really, really love that. They definitely took the time to think about it and make sure it was done for a reason instead of just throwing random stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think even from the moment that they showed off the 2001 reference in the teaser trailer, it like excited me. It's like, yes, this is the kind of like reference humor that I really enjoy. Something that like makes sense in the context of the movie, but still funny and like fresh, like a fresh little spin on something that's come before. Like that, the Matrix reference, like both of those are really fun and done well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, the 2001 opening was also like just the way that was like filmed was really funny. Like seeing the little girls just like smash the baby dolls. Like that was pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
watching that scene, watching the trailer, and then seeing it in the movie, I was like, I bet those girls had a blast because they get to sit there and they get to smash stuff. Like, I'm sure they had a blast on set that day. And
Most likely.
I like that it's set up with 2001 Space Odyssey because it kind of tells you what the movie's about. Because 2001 Space Odyssey is about like man and technology and the evolution of man and like whatnot. Whereas like Barbie is like the evolution of Barbie and like the history of like womanhood and stuff of that like nature. So it's very fitting. Plus, like it got me excited for the movie. And then like the first teaser trailer too, uh, got me excited for the movie because you see like uh just a random steal of like a pedal boat with like guys standing on it and Ryan Gosling's dressed up in like a leather vest with fringe on it and I was like, "What is this movie?" It turns out this movie is a very good, funny, thoughtful movie that addresses the matriarchy and human existence in the society that we live in, and I was not really expecting any of that. It also has really fun dance numbers. Like, I did not expect any of the dance numbers, well, except the one party.
Yeah, the big ending battle between all the Kens, one of the best parts of the movie, I felt.
Agreed. Like the Battle of the Kens was so fun from like the very beginning, the opening like the next morning on Ryan Gosling's Ken in his bedroom to like them approaching the battle to like the battle starting and all of the chaos that ensues. And then when you finally get to like I think it's like a Grease inspired dance number. But like when they're in that like sort of abstract room after Simu and Ryan have like a beach off, I guess. And they're like in the black shirts and whatever. And then like in that moment when they finally kind of like come together and become unified, I really like that specifically. Not only is like I feel like the music at its most fun at that point 'cause it's very like 80s-y with all the synths and everything, but I just feel like the musical number was really great. And then I also really enjoyed the like the early musical number at the Barbie Dream House party. That was fun as well.
Yeah.
I I think the choreography is really good, and, like, watching that scene and seeing all the different Barbies of different, body types, of different, races, of different abilities, like, one Barbie is in a wheelchair. It was, like, of Barbies of different weight. Um, it's just really nice to see them all there dancing together and having a blast and having fun. Cause like, who wouldn't want to see that? Like, I'm sure tons of girls have been able to see themselves in this movie, whether they're young or young adults, women of all ages, I think, can see themselves and their experience in this movie. And I think this movie is also something that men of all ages should watch too, because it, you know,
Absolutely.
talks about several different things that we all need to be aware of.
I think the ending with Ken is extremely important because I feel like a lot of people don't realize that you can't be like dependent of someone else's existence for you to want to keep existing or for them to define your entire existence. Like you need to know who you are, get to know who that is, and also like live for yourself and be your own person before you can like be attached to someone else. And I think that's a really important message, especially for guys, because I feel like that's so often like a problem. And that's not necessarily always a malicious problem. Like I don't think a lot of people specifically like decide to do that, but whether it's like they get fully involved in like fatherhood and they kind of lose themselves, or they get fully invested in the relationship and they kind of lose sight of who they are. I mean, a lot of people to some degree always, or everyone to some degree does, because like you become two people like as one. But like that's besides the point. Like very specifically, kind of overdoing it and getting too involved. But like that sort of thing, I think it's a very important message.
Oh yeah, I agree. And then I wanted to say something earlier, Miranda, when you were talking about how there's different Barbies of different body types. I did think that it was really nice of them to be more inclusive in the way that the Barbies of this world looked, because not everybody looks like Margot Robbie, not everybody looks perfect. There's different Barbies, like you were saying. They got different body types. There's one that's in a wheelchair. I did like that. I thought that was really nice.
Speaking of bodies, though, one of my favorite moments in the entire movie, though, is when Barbie's feet go flat and they're like, "Let us take a look," and then she like lifts her foot up, and that one Barbie goes, "Flat feet," and then they all start gagging.
Yeah, and then it's like,
Yeah.
all
So
right,
funny.
stop it, Ken. I'm sorry.
He's like,
Oh, yeah. I
"Stop
don't
it, Ken."
I don't think I ever mentioned my favorite Ken or Barbie at the beginning, but, the Ken that's on the lifeguard post who's, like, gagging during that scene, I liked that Ken. He kinda just follows Ryan Gosling's Ken around. I think it's the right Ken I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
yeah, it is, it is.
Um, but, like, he was very, like, cool, I guess,
Kingsley
like,
Benadir, yeah.
yeah, I was like, cause he's not main Ken, and he's not Ken's, like, enemy. He's just a normal Ken who wants to be friends with Ken.
Yeah.
And then for, like, Barbie, um, I liked I liked all of them. I don't know if I have a favorite, but I think they're all great, and I don't know if we're getting a sequel. I mean, I kinda hope not, because movie can, like, stand on its own, and I think we should have movies that stand on their own a bit more, because 'cause we're in such an age of sequels and reboots and whatnot. But if they want to expand and, like, go in stories with the other Barbies, I would totally watch it.
We're
I
most
think
likely. Oh, go ahead.
I was probably what you were gonna say. I was gonna say that I'm pretty sure just because of the amount of money and attention it's generated, it's almost certainly getting a sequel. I'm pretty
Yeah, we're
positive.
most likely getting a sequel.
I'm pretty positive the only movie that has officially been confirmed is a Ken spin-off. But aside from that, like, yeah, it's almost certainly gonna happen. If anything, though, I just hope Greta Gerwig is still attached because I think without her and Noah Baumbach, like both of them writing and also like her directing, I think I don't know, maybe someone could still make something that's still worthwhile and everything, but I just feel like they really elevated this movie to something that like could have just been something on the same level as like the Emoji Movie, like something that just was like tasteless without like a real reason to exist, and it made this like fun, new, exciting movie that had like that actually had something to say.
Well, not only that, but like, not only are we most likely getting a sequel, but this movie has been so successful that Mattel is like, hey, I'm sure other people want to see other movies made from our other products. So we're interested in like 14 of our other products that we want to make into movies. We want to create the MCU, the Mattel Cinematic Universe.
No, 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 we don't want that.
No,
We don't want that.
exactly.
It's okay.
Exactly. Just
We can just have Barbie.
like we're going back to the same problem that we had like 5, 10 years ago, where because everybody wants that Marvel money and they think the secret to that Marvel money is making a cinematic universe, but what these studios don't understand was if you want the Marvel money, you gotta lay out a plan and you gotta like it takes time. It took time for Marvel to get to where they were at. Like
Mhm.
you can't just go and make all of these movies that are connected with each other and think that that's going to print money. The reason why Marvel is so successful is because like 60 to 70% of the movies that they come out with are above average at the very least. Most of these movies or other studios that have tried to do their own cinematic universe, all of their movies suck. So they fall flat on their face and they fail right then and there. Like you need to make good movies.
Period.
And we do not need a Mattel Cinematic Universe, although the acronym would still be MCU.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
but
we do not.
I did want to mention that this movie is important to talk about in terms of like female lead movies. Because this movie allows Barbie and to be more feminine and wear dress and love pink and be a little girly and you know wear sparkles and do her hair and wear makeup. Whereas like other recent female-led movies, they tend to make the female lead um, a little more masculine, such as like Captain Marvel, um, which I do enjoy that movie, but they make her more of a masculine type person than a super feminine type person. So I think this is a good movie to have on that spectrum of like the different types of characters and different ways to show like women characters because like again like this movie is very good at showing different types of Barbies, and I think the media needs to start showing different type of women led, not even women led necessarily, but just different types of women characters in the media. There's all kinds. And like it's okay to like pink and wear dresses and do makeup stuff. And it's also like you can be smart and be a scientist and have a Nobel Peace Prize for physics, which I thought was very funny when they snapped that Barbie out of her trance. She's like, um, I have a Nobel Prize in physics, and I'm because it's, the double feature thing with Oppenheimer, and, like, he doesn't have a Nobel Prize, but it very much involves physics, so I don't think they intended that, but that reference came into my brain.
Yeah, and you're talking about how this movie does have themes of, feminism and like we already mentioned the patriarchy because like the whole idea behind it is because all the Barbies living in Barbie world think that the real world is perfect. They think that women are doing great in the real world. Cuz like in Barbie world like women run everything. So the Barbies in Barbie world are thinking, "Oh, that must be what it's like in the real world." But then when Barbie gets to the real world, she finds out, no, it is not like that. And that's when Ken figures out, "Hey, well, the world is mostly run by men." Like in the patriarchy, so like Ken takes those ideas back to Barbie world and it ends up changing it. Now Barbie world is run by the Kens instead of the Barbies, and yeah, it's definitely some interesting topics to talk about for sure, and it's definitely stirring up controversy with a certain crowd of people.
Yeah, which I guess is to be expected when
Yeah,
you have a movie. I feel like any movie with a female lead, like even Captain Marvel, like stirred up drama for those certain
Especially
type of
Captain
people.
Marvel.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like you've done this before, like
well,
or
no, well, it's not just that. Just any movie or like piece of media that has a woman in a position of power is going to stir up some type of controversy.
yeah, which is like really dumb. Just get over it. Like I don't I don't get why people get so mad about that. Like just
Because
don't
it's
watch it.
woke.
If it bugs you that much, don't watch it. Don't think
If only
about
it
it.
were
Don't
that easy.
comment on it. You don't have to share your opinion.
I don't think out of sight, out of mind exists as a concept in their brains, unfortunately.
No, yeah.
But
Probably not.
I do think it's kind of funny though too, because like it's really not at all. I mean, obviously not. Like it was never going to be exactly what those people say it is, but like it's like very specifically is not what they think it is, because at the end, like Barbie apologizes to Ken, like she's like, no, like you're right, like I should have respected you more as like a person, blah blah blah. Like if it really was just like this super ridiculous, like extremist feminist, like whatever boogeyman thing they think it is. Like she would never in a million years see that, but she does. Why? Because like that's not what the story is. Like they just have no idea what these things even are. They just like imagine this ridiculous over the top worst case scenario and like yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like what it is. And they could even go see it and like completely just not even, it's like in one year out the other year, like sort of thing.
Well, that's because they only want to agree with what they want to hear. They don't want to hear otherwise. They're going in with the mindset that they're already going to hate it and that it already is what it is, even though it's not. That's not what they want to hear. So, but it's not but you mentioned how it's not this like super ultra feminist thing because you brought up that scene at the end where Barbie apologizes to Ken. There's also that one scene where she goes to talk to Sasha in the lunchroom, and then Sasha's like, "Barbie has set the feminist movement 50 years back. It's not a good image. We hate Barbie because of the way it feels like it needs to, like women have to have like a perfect body and whatnot. Like that scene too." Like plays into this isn't something that's just ultra feminist right here.
Yeah, it's like an actual like conversation and or like a critique of not only like the Barbie brand, but just I feel like the concepts that are being discussed as a whole too, in a way.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And uh speaking of the scene with Sasha, Barbie the toy line has actually gotten a lot better. There are a variety of different Barbies now of different body types and everything. So they are like, did it take them a long time to get away from the very skinny blonde image? Yes, but they're working on it towards like being more inclusive of like of other people with their designs they have. the different body types and different disabilities, even different hair color and all stuff like that. They have a line for that now. So they're slowly getting away from the blonde, perfect, skinny type image. So I don't know when that line started. I think it was fairly recently. It was definitely after like I grew out of Barbie toys. But like kids now get to see that and they can literally go to the toy aisle and pick out a Barbie that looks exactly like them. So I just wanted to mention that.
So another aspect I did like about this movie is, I mentioned earlier in my first impressions that I was thinking, oh, we're going to do the whole fish out of water. They're going to be in the real world most of the time. They're actually not as
Yeah.
much in the real world as I thought they were going to be. That's only like a small part of the movie, and I do appreciate that.
They did a nice subversion from that storyline because that's a very common thing.
Well, not only that, but there weren't too many like of your common fish out of water jokes. Like you didn't see Barbie like going up to a I don't know like a traffic light and being like, "Oh, what are these lights? What does that mean?" Or or going into a restaurant, picking up a fork and being like, "Oh, what's this?" Like I'm glad none of that was really in there that much. Although the part where Ken was going around trying to apply for jobs was really funny. I did like that.
I think later he says a line that's like, "If it wasn't for degrees and whatever else, I could have been a doctor or something."
Yeah.
It's like, "Yep, that's what's holding you back, your degree." Because I guess in Barbie Land, you don't need a degree to be a doctor. Although the doctor scene when he like breaks his arm after he goes surfing, the Barbies are wearing white Crocs. I think that's another
That's
detail I noticed.
that's the key. You just need white Crocs to be a doctor.
Although I don't think Crocs are very safe doctor/nurse hospital shoe.
Probably
They
not.
probably don't
No,
want you to wear
I
those.
wouldn't think so.
But the
Comfortable, yes, but
yes, comfortable. Um, but the ambulance like functions as if it was like a toy. Be like the first thing I thought was that's exactly how that toy would work.
Yeah. Especially when they open the ambulance and it like folds out to like be a whole like doctor's like operating table.
Hmm.
I also like that she's like, actually, in the time that it took me for me to say that, you're already healed. And he was like, okay, great. Like a
Yeah.
fun little touch. Uh,
Um,
j- I was gonna say just real quick because I didn't say this earlier because I didn't want to interrupt. But you know how you said that that one Ken or Kingsley Benadire was your favorite Ken, the one who was like Ryan Gosling's buddy. He's actually in this other movie called One Night in Miami, and he plays Malcolm X. And that's the only other thing I've ever seen him in. Well, I think he was in another movie called Noel, but like I've only seen that once. I don't really remember. But in One Night in Miami, he plays Malcolm X. So the whole time I'm just seeing him as like Malcolm X, like from that one movie, which is like a really funny light to like see him in while watching Barbie. And then at the end, once he gets like the fur coat, he gives like a very serious, like quick speech, like slash monologue thing. And it just like brought me right back to like him playing Malcolm X and it just made it like a little extra funny. So I just thought that was
it'd be a
Uh
strange thing to watch. Clearly,
yeah.
he has range.
yeah.
So, I would like to know your thoughts on the ending and what are your thoughts on the ending of Barbie becoming human and
Yeah, I was going to
whatnot?
talk about the ending actually because earlier there's an interesting part of the ending that I think could make for a good conversation. And earlier, Miranda, you had said, I think it was during your brief thoughts or whatever, you had said that like in the end, like everybody ends up working together. Like the Barbies and the Kens like kind of share power. But do they really? Because like the Kens ask for a seat on the Senate, and then the Barbies go, "No, we can't do that. We're not going to do that." Like I understand the message that they're trying to convey there because afterwards you hear the narrator go, and then maybe one day the Kens will have enough power in Barbie land as women do in the real world. So I understand the message, but still, it's like because my I went to go I saw this movie twice. I saw it once with Udi and then I saw it again with my friends. And one of my friends did bring up a good point where it's like they didn't really like fix the problem with the Kens there because they're still denying them any type of power. So like they're still like the underlings. And once again, I do understand the message that they're trying to tell there, but you know.
I feel like it's just more like it's more following like history. Like women when they got rights or were more seen as like, for lack of better words, like equivalent to men, I guess. Like they weren't immediately given power. Like it took a while for them to get power. And so like the
Yeah.
Kens, I think they got given like lower circuit court like judge positions, like a few or maybe like one or something. But like it's
Yeah.
very much like baby steps, I think is like the implication. It's not like if they would have ended up with like, oh yeah, of course you can have like one or two like Supreme Court seats, like that's fun. Like but I think the idea is more like it's trying to follow more like realistic, like real world, like our world. Like it took women a long time to even get into those positions of power, even when they started finally being like recognized as capable human beings as well. I feel like
Yeah, you
that's
see
what I got.
yeah, and that I do understand that because like, once again, that's what the narrator directly implies that by saying one day the Kens will have as much power as women do in the real world. So I do understand that, but like I'm just bringing up for like other thoughts that because like I said, my friend kind of took issue with that ending because like he was like, well, then the issues, I feel like they didn't really resolve the issue. But you once again, the thing that I got from it and the thing that you just brought up is yeah, it took a while for women in the real world to have any type of power, and women still, if you ask me, still don't have enough power.
Yeah. The way I took the scene was like as the real world improves, Barbie land will improve too. So right now the Kens have the same power as women do in the real world, but as women like go through society and start having more like positions where they can change things or like are in government or like CEOs of companies or just just a general existent doing their job and whatnot, the more the real world changes to make sure that you know it's not just dominated by one type of view and it's more equal and more inclusive, so will Barbie Land. And it's just a progress that is gonna like happen at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and can you really blame the Barbies for not wanting to give the Kens a higher position of power after the way they royally screwed up Barbie Land?
And
Yeah,
try to like completely take it over.
Yeah.
yeah. They messed some stuff up, but hopefully they learned a lesson, and hopefully everyone who watched has learned something. So it's always good to learn
But
something.
I wanted to bring up another point though, because like one of the reasons why my friend was like so bothered by it is because like I was trying to explain to them, well, it's not like the Kens were living like awful lives, but then they were like, were they though? They don't even have homes. That is true. Like, do the Kens have homes? Because earlier at one point in the movie, like Barbie gets asked, does she know where the Kens live? And she's like, I'm not really sure. So like, do they have homes? Are they homeless?
I guess we'll find out in the Ken Solo film.
I
I'm
guess.
sure they have homes. It's just something they just didn't mention or talk about, or to like to show the point that like Barbie hadn't necessarily been treating Ken in the best light,
I
you
don't
know.
know though, because one point you can make is obviously the things that happen in Barbie world are like a reflection of the real world. Because when the Kens take over, what does he call it? Like Ken's like super
Kendom,
Kendom Casa or something like that. I don't know.
Mojo.
Mojo Dojo Casa
Mojo
House.
Dojo Casa House. Yeah. Well, then actual Mojo Dojo Casa houses start selling in the real world. Like they're like, oh, these are flying off the shelves. We don't have enough stock to keep demand. It's like Mattel makes Barbie dream houses. They don't make Ken dream houses.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like weird toy science stuff, and this not a movie that explores much of that. Magic. It's all magic. We could just say it's magic.
There we go. Yeah, magic.
I'd like to imagine that they just live in like an underground cave system, like a hive, like a bunch of ants.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
They just end up in the toy bin that and they all smell like basement. I thought that was a funny thing
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's where all our toys, like all the Barbies, are in a bin downstairs. So they probably smell like basement.
Or attic.
Yep,
Or
or
attic.
attic. So for the ending with Barbie like becoming human, I really liked that that storyline because she's like, I don't feel perfect anymore. I don't feel like stereotypical Barbie. Like she doesn't feel like she belongs to Barbie Land anymore. Because she's like experienced the real world and has like learned like about the real world and Barbie Land and all of this other stuff. And the scene where she's talking to the creator, uh can't remember her name offhand.
Ruth, like the elderly lady that she ran into in like that one kitchen that gave her the tea.
Yes,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
she's
that was Ruth.
talking yes, when she's talking to Ruth Handler, um, at the end, and she's asking permission to be human. It's like she says, "You don't need to ask. You can just be human. You can just exist as you are." I just really liked that scene. It's very good. It brought tears to my eyes, and yeah, it's just really good. The song that they play for the scene when she's talking to Ruth at the end is very good. I think Billie Eilish either well, she sings it. I'm not sure she wrote it. I'm assuming she probably did. Um, like I was listening to the soundtrack today and I was like, "Oh no, it's this song. It's gonna make me cry." But they like show all the footage of like little girls playing and like moms and uh other women doing their like tasks from like all different time periods, and I was like, I'm glad they included that into the movie too. So I think it's a very well made, very thoughtful and important movie, and that people should go see it.
Yeah. Lots of good scenes.
Big agree. I think this movie in particular is just very powerful, and just the fact that it's being so well received and doing so well is extremely like satisfying. Like it's like yes, like if this had released in the exact same state like a decade ago, as like frustrating as it is to think like it might not be doing this well, like maybe like it would have just bombed to the box office, but it seems like we're at a point in our society where like people are more accepting of a movie like this, thankfully, and so it's just really nice to see it be doing well at the box office and getting all this attention and getting all this love.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a very very good thing because yeah, I think definitely if it was made 10 years ago, no one would have seen it or cared, and then it would have eventually maybe become like a cult classic, like Jennifer's Body. That's one that wasn't really perceived really well, but there's a big following for it now. But
Yeah.
where this one was released now, and it's really nice to see the responses towards this movie. Did we have any more thoughts?
I'll just give my because you guys did a good job of talking about the ending. I mean, like I said, I really like the movie. I think it did everything it needed to, and like with the ending specifically, I'm glad that they had the very like poignant thing of like having Sasha say like, no, what's Barbie's ending? And then you got like the typical like executive being like, oh well, she's in love with Ken, and then that like, no, that's not good enough. Like, what's her actual ending? And then like actually taking the time to give her a true like honest um authentic and like well thought out ending. Um, like that whole sequence with her and Ruth, like in that one abstract room, was really well done. And just yeah, just overall, again, like the whole film was fantastic. And I think the ending really wrapped it up nicely. And then having that nice little joke at the end was a nice way to kind of like bring back like the humor one last time and just kind of
Yeah.
close it off on like a good note.
Be like, we don't want you to be sad. Here's a funny little unexpected line.
Yeah.
Small little note about that ending scene that Udi was talking about. I really like when Will Ferrell I don't remember if it's the mom or if it's the girl, but they say that they have an idea or a dream or whatever, and then Will Ferrell goes, "What is your dream, child?" Just
Yeah,
like
it's the mom, yeah.
just the way he delivers that line was great. I really like that.
Yeah.
And they were just the scene when where Will Ferrell's like, "You call me mother," and President Barbie was like, "No,
No,
not
thank you.
doing that."
Yeah. I also like how during that whole ending sequence, like Will Ferrell just comes out of nowhere. Like he just comes out of this like small little like building just out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
I think that's Skipper's Playhouse.
Yeah, it is. That he looks at Skipper and then he like screams. He's like,
Oh,
ah!
Midge.
Yeah, it was
He looks at
Midge.
Midge.
Oh, okay. Either way, he looks. Was it Midge that he looks at then? Then he like
Yeah.
screams. Yeah,
Yeah,
he like
she's the pregnant
screams.
Barbie.
Yeah. Like, ah! I thought we discontinued you or whatever.
It's a
That was
very
good.
strange tour to have a pregnant Barbie. I'm not sure
Yeah.
why.
Yeah,
Well,
I know. I
they
don't know.
made Midge because Barbie could do anything, right? But they didn't want Barbie to be pregnant. So that's why they made Midge.
But a
Gotcha.
pregnant doll is just odd.
It is. There's
But
some weird ones.
why did they make Ellen
Like sugar daddy.
sugar daddy? Yeah.
Sugar daddy. No, I'm not sugar daddy Ken.
Not sugar daddy Ken. Yeah.
That's sugar and I'm her daddy.
This is sugar and I'm her daddy.
So
Yeah.
funny.
Uh,
But
or video Barbie, where
oh
Barbie with a
yeah.
camera. That was a strange one.
I like how she's like, I have a camera or I have like a screen on my back. No one wants that.
Yeah.
No.
But so you guys have any final thoughts to wrap this up?
My final thoughts are, I mean, more or less like what you guys said, and what I kind of already have said during my first impressions. But yeah, this was a pleasant surprise for me. This movie has a great message, has some really well thought out moments, great humor, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely deserves the success that it's getting right now. And I look forward to seeing what else Greta Gerwig is gonna come up with.
Definitely. I really enjoyed her take on Little Woman. I really enjoy that movie. That one also makes me cry. And I've seen Lady Bird, but like that wasn't really my vibe. I don't usually go towards those movies, so I am glad that Barbie is something that I like because it's very good. Um, Everyone who worked on this movie did a fantastic job, whether it was an actor, a writer, director, script supervisor, set designer, prop master, random other people, graphic designers. Like, they're all very talented and they all did a fantastic job. Costume designers specifically, like, this movie cannot be made without that whole production team. And it's nice when something that you can clearly tell that people care about put like their time and desire and passion into creating something very well made, very good, that people are also responding to something that's very good and well made.
I agree.
Yeah. And the only thing I was like missing from this movie is like fairy Barbies because they have mermaid Barbies, but I didn't
Oh
see any
yeah.
fairies. But that's only mainly because have the Fairytopia movie, so that's, like, the Barbie movie I've probably seen the most out of all of them, but, like, that's not even a complaint or anything, that's just a, "Hey, I wish this cameo was in here" type thing. Um, and then I liked, uh, Ken's song, Ryan Gosling's, like, song. I saw, like, promo stuff of it, and I did not realize it was going to be in the movie. I thought they filmed that extra just for promotion.
That'd be pretty incredible if it was just for the promotion.
I
Yeah,
mean,
really.
they went all out with promotion, like, there's a mall near me, and they had the Barbie, like, the elevators looking like Barbie,
Cool.
boxes, and giant, like, Barbie posters on their, like, big, like, screens in their, like, lobby, like, they went all out.
I will say that the one big piece of marketing that I saw out in the world, especially prior to the movie coming out, was like they had these big Barbie boxes that you could like take pictures in. They were basically just like big props that you could like walk into and like take a picture in,
Mhm.
or like have someone take your picture while you're in it, basically. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get my picture in the Barbie box because the day that I went, they had thrown out the Barbie box. So, oh well,
Aw.
but
Very sad.
big sad.
I'm sure someone called dibs on it and was like, "The moment we don't need this anymore, I'm taking it home."
Maybe.
Oh yeah, most likely.
'Cause I've asked, like, theaters, like, "What do you do with the posters?" And they're like, yeah, the employees call dibs on it, and then they take them home." And I was like, "Oh, so I can't get a Last Night in Soho poster?" And they're like, "Probably not." It's like,
Yeah.
"Okay."
Well, I know specifically like that day because like a worker told me like what happened to it, and like they even were like, hey, maybe you should go check like the dumpster in the back. It might still be there. Go, 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 go. And I checked, but like they said it was like really beaten up. So like this might
Oh,
be the one case where they actually did throw it away. But I mean,
mm,
yeah, usually the employees will keep that sort of thing or like call dibs, which
yeah.
fair work perks.
Well, you'll just you could make one. You could Photoshop one.
I could Photoshop, and that'd be a lot easier than
Yeah.
trying to make my own. I don't know if I care that much, but yeah, I thought that would be fun to take a picture. Or hell, maybe for Barbie 2, they'll make more boxes.
It's a possibility.
Okay, so then just to give my closing thoughts on the movie, I've basically said this before, so I'll keep it very, very brief. But like I said, really loved the movie. Thought it accomplished everything it needed to. Is definitely like, especially if you're a person who claims that like there's nothing original nowadays or like all movies are the same, blah 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 blah. Like this is definitely a fun movie to go see. It might not be your favorite movie of all time, but it's definitely like a unique and fun take on like a bigger budget movie than like what has come out in a while. So would highly recommend. All right, so what are everyone's ratings of the movie?
Yes, ratings. Dan, do you wanna go first?
Yeah. So I'm going to give Barbie 4 out of 5 stars. Good movie. Go see it.
Udi, what's your rating?
Like I'm very much leaning 4.5, but I have seen it 3 times and I feel like I'm at a solid 4. It would definitely not go any lower than a 4. It's definitely more leaning like 4.5, but I'll say 4 for now. But it's definitely like a really really great movie.
Okay. And I never rated my official, like, viewings on Letterbox, so I've had some time to think about it. Also, just a note, on Letterbox, if you like the movie, the heart turns pink instead of orange. Just like how if you like Everything Everywhere All at Once, the heart turns into a googly eye, which I enjoy when they do that type of stuff on Letterbox. But my rating for this movie is going to be a 4.5, I think. Because I really do enjoy it and I really like it. And it's just fun experience. Like the hype and the dressing up and getting a group of friends together to go see it, even with like the double feature of the century with Oppenheimer. It's just like something fun and it's a big like spectacle and also seeing everyone else dressed up in pink, or like dressed up in pink and black for the double feature, was like just fun to see and be like, oh, we're all here to have a good time and we're all like on the same thought here. And then just the movie itself is really good and is really nice and refreshing to watch. So I guess I could do math here. So our average score is a 4.166 repeating, so rounded, it would be a 4 out of 5. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to our conversation about Barbie. If you're interested in hearing more, check out our previous episodes. And as always, you can find us on Instagram at Atomic Lizards Pod and on Letterboxd at Atomic_Lizard.